something in your life didn't look exactly the way you thought it should. So maybe that was a family gathering, a birthday celebration, a vacation, anything, fill in the blank. And then you end up ruining it because the reality of what unfolds doesn't match your expectations. It doesn't look the way you think it should look. And it's not actually that anything is wrong or went wrong. But again, that reality wasn't matching the script in your head. I've been there so many times. And very recently, I found myself sitting in one of the most beautiful places on earth. We were in Turks and Caicos. I was there with my husband and our 3 young adult children for what could be our very last family vacation as a party of 5 before life shifts and our family expands and our son gets married next year. And we get there and I found myself super anxious. And it wasn't, again, that anything was wrong. I mean, it was raining. And so that's disappointing when you're going somewhere where you want to sit on a beach and swim and the whole vacation surrounds that. But I mean, come on. Again, we're in a beautiful, beautiful place in the world and we're together. But the anxiety inside of me, oh my goodness, I couldn't shift it. And it took me a little while to figure out why the heck I was so anxious. And I found myself worrying about everyone else and whether they were going to have fun and whether they were going to be disappointed and did they have expectations. And somewhere along the way, in the first few days as I was wrestling with this, I realized this, that my expectations, my high bar for so many different things have stolen more joy from my life than almost anything else. And today in this episode, I want to talk about expectations. Our theme here on the Daily Surrender is around ways that we can surrender and live with more joy, live with more abundance, live with more freedom. And these dang expectations, they get in the way and they create so much more suffering that's coming not from what's actually happening, but from our resistance to it. So let's get to it. Let's talk about it because I know I'm not alone in this. So just a little backstory to the Party of 5 family vacation. I'd been talking about doing this for the last year. I wanted one last big, grand, wonderful family vacation. I wanted it to be extra special. I actually identified some of my desire for it to be so extra special while I was on the vacation. I will get to that, because I'm such a self-reflector and I'm always looking for the root cause of like my anxiety or why I'm disappointed or why am I upset. So anyway, about a year ago, we started talking about what should we do? What should we do for our big last Party of 5 vacation? Well, I didn't know it'd be our last Party of 5 vacation, but anyway, and we had talked about going out west. It's something that we had never done before, the 5 of us, and we wanted to do a multi-stop trip out west. And after Christmas time, my son got engaged. And that's when I realized, oh, it really is going to be our last Party of 5. And so I had the whole itinerary all planned out. And then we had a bunch of different wrenches thrown in. And I won't go into all the details of those. But the vacation planning, the actual booking of this trip kept getting delayed because of a couple different things that were up in the air. And my son ended up getting a job in Asheville, North Carolina, and he wasn't sure of the start date of it after he was done with school. Like we're, again, back and forth on that. And so I was waiting. And finally, this was almost a month before we went away for vacation. I hadn't booked anything. And our out west adventure was going to be minimum 10 days, if not 12, plus a lot of behind the scenes booking on my part for the multiple locations that we wanted to go to. And at that point, I was exasperated and I realized that the most important thing for us to do was go on a vacation, the 5 of us. Let's go somewhere. And I asked around, and a couple people suggested we go to Turks and Caicos. It's someplace we'd never been. My husband and I have been to the Caribbean a few times, but we'd never been to Turks and Caicos. And the kids sounded really excited about it. So I booked it, and it was a simple, straight shot, and like booking it, Airbnb, we go. And we get there, and, first 24 hours of vacation, you're always adjusting. You're tired because you're doing all the things to get packed up and, get my house all ready for the dog sitter and all the things and travel. And so there's a normal like tiredness, right? We get there and it's pouring rain. You're like, okay, it's pouring rain. And of course, that's disappointing, especially when you're in a place where the entire vacation revolves around the beach. And by the way, like I'm fully aware that this is like first world problems here. But regardless, this is really an episode about the sneaky ways that expectations can rob our joy. So hang with me. And so it's raining, and we go back, we get into our Airbnb, and it's actually an amazing Airbnb. It was everything that I expected it to be based on the pictures and the reviews, which was lovely. And then my husband and I go to the grocery store to stock up on food, and I almost had a heart attack. I failed to budget for the prices in the Caribbean, especially with the current inflation hitting the Caribbean even harder. And it was always expensive, but it was extra special expensive. So on top of it, I'm like, so I'm taking that on because the trip was my idea. I booked it. And I felt so responsible for the extra money we were going to have to spend at the food store for a whole week to feed the 5 of us. So I had an expectation there. And then what I start doing is like reading the room and looking at my kids and thinking, oh my gosh, are they going to be happy enough with this vacation? Are they going to, is my husband going to be happy enough with this vacation? Old patterning of behavior on my part started to surface for me. I'm somebody who's worked really hard to become very aware of my very old habit of scanning the room and trying to make sure that everybody is happy, emotionally regulated. And that's what led to me being a chronic people pleaser for a really long time. So I found myself doing that with my family. Instead of saying, hey, this is what it is. We're in a beautiful place and we're together. Most importantly, the 5 of us are together. If it rains this entire week and we've got a couple decks of cards, we're going to play cards and it's going to be exactly what it is. And it's going to be wonderful. No. I wasn't there in the first few days of this trip. I was wrestling. So that hypervigilance was really returning. And anytime that we're in a pressure cooker and life is like really pushing in on us, it's almost like we've got this fault line or underlying, even if they're old behaviors, old constructs, limiting beliefs, they're going to show up. And even when we've addressed them, and God knows I've addressed it so many times, but so pressure cooker, right? Stress, fatigue, sticker shock, all the things. And I have my son saying to me, it was like the second day of vacation, everyone could feel my own energy. They can look at me and they're looking at me and my stress and my anxiety. All right, Mom, he says to me, Mom, what are your expectations? I'm like, what are my expectations? First of all, how do you know I have expectations? He reads me well. He knows me well. And I looked at him and I said, oh, that's a really good question, Joey. Clearly, I have expectations that everyone's going to have fun, that we all have a great time together. I mean, actually, I think that's my expectation. I really think that's it. Until he asked me that, I wasn't even aware of what expectations I was running, what story I had there. And he goes, just so you know, I have no expectation, Mom. I have none. I'm so appreciative to be on vacation. Whatever this vacation is good. I'm just so happy to be together as a family. And I thought, oh, am I happy to be together as a family? Or do I have underlying expectations or a really, really high bar for this trip that's running the show? And then I've got my husband saying to me, honey, nothing is wrong. We'll adjust our budget. It will all be okay. We'll work it out on the other side. We have to let it go. We are here. If you're going to obsess and perseverate on the cost of everything every day of this trip, it's going to ruin the trip, Jen. And if it rains every day of this trip, but you can't find joy in the clouds and the rain, you're going to ruin the trip for yourself. But the kids and I, we're good. We're having fun. We're happy. Nobody is complaining, Jen. So it took me about 2 days, if I'm being really honest, and I'm being really honest, of really sitting with it, sitting in the discomfort of my own anxiety, sitting in the discomfort of my own self-created stress from the expectations that I had. I had to observe them. And then I had to ask myself, where are you coming from? And why in the world are you worrying about other people and their expectations? That's on them. If they've got any expectations, that's on them. If they're disappointed, uncomfortable, bored, whatever, that is not your problem. You are providing them with an amazing experience. And Jen, why are you really here on this vacation? Ultimately, I wanted, the 5 of us wanted time together in a container. And vacations provide us with that, no matter where we are. We could pitch a tent in the middle of nowhere, and that's a container for togetherness. And at the end of the day, we're in a beautiful location in this world. So after I relaxed and I started to drop the expectations, we ended up having an amazing week. We played so many games. We laughed. We got caught on the beach in an absolute downpour. And we laughed about it. It was fun. My son's like, this is fun. I'm like, this is fun. This is fun. This can be fun if I choose to make it fun. So I really came to that place where I realized that nothing was wrong externally. I mean, and there are certainly things that can go really, really wrong. Like there could have been a hurricane and there was no power and we had no food, right? That was not our situation at all. The storm was inside of me. And the only one who could calm that storm was me. It was me in returning to presence, getting out of the future, right? Because that's what we're really doing. Expectations are really attempts to control outcomes in order for us to create safety. And it's the presence, it's dropping into presence that really allows us to receive what is. So me becoming more aware of that and aware of the storm that was inside of me that only I could calm, it started to shift everything. So I want to talk about expectations because we all have them in the context that I'm talking about here today. Those expectations that are the pre-written scripts that we have in our head for something. It could be a pre-written script for an expectation for, a relationship, for an experience. I recently was talking with a client of mine and she was saying how Mother's Day was really rough because she spent the day with her extended family and she went into it with expectations. And then she was disappointed because the expectations that she had for the day were not met. She wrote the script in her head. Nobody else read it, nor was her script anybody else's script. And instead of just being present and letting the day unfold as the day unfolded, she was finding herself annoyed and disappointed. So we had a whole talk about dropping those expectations. How ironic, right? I am a human. I am not perfect, even though I coach other people. And let me tell you, when I coach other people, it always reverberates right back on me. So I actually thought about that conversation with my client while I was away on this vacation and thinking, oh man, look at you. You just stepped right back into that too, Jen. We all do it. It's those unconscious contracts that we make. The attempts to create certainty and safety, the protective mechanism of having an expectation. It's control. It's also a form of control. Expectations are so often the ego's attempt to bargain with reality. So psychologically, when we look at it. Our brains like prediction because prediction feels safe, right? If we could just predict how everything's going to go, then we feel safer. We can relax. We can chill. We can know that it's all going to be okay. We don't get that. That's not for us. The details of what's to come are not ours to control. That's God's. But again, understanding ourselves from a psychological standpoint helps us to have more grace and compassion. It also helps us to have more self-awareness. So our nervous system prefers certainty. It does. It equates it with safety. So can we expect that sometimes when things don't go the way that we want or predicted or scripted, that the nervous system will feel a little bit hijacked like mine did? Absolutely. Definitely. So can we be prepared for that? So when the anxiety rises, we can take a look. Okay. All right, nervous system. Okay. I hear you and I feel you. I know it's really uncomfortable. We don't have certainty right now. Things are not going as we scripted. That doesn't feel safe. So then how can we bring safety back into our being? How can we shift with our internal self-talk? Perhaps we need to move. Perhaps we need to breathe. We need to pray. And I did a lot of that until my nervous system calmed the heck down and dropped into calm peace. So another thing that happens is when reality violates our expectations, there's this threat response that is, again, activating. So when we feel that panic inside of us, maybe we're at an event and the event isn't going exactly as planned. Okay. So we can feel the stress response in our body, and then we can speak truth. We're safe. It's okay. Everything is figure outable. We're going to be really, really present to what is right now. And we're going to pivot. We're going to shift, and it will all be okay. And we can bring that calm back into ourselves instead of interpreting the discomfort of the uncertainty, the change in plans, the shift in the script as danger. So look at expectations as a mismatch that then activates the nervous system that can lead to suffering, right? And it's not because the reality of what's happening is necessarily bad. And sometimes the reality of what's happening is really not great, right? Even with travel, you can have flight cancellations. You can have detours along the way. I mean, there can be bigger things that happen and we get activated, but remaining present and dropping our stories that come from the script of our expectations can help bring us back into presence. It can help us to anchor into this moment here and anchor back into what is good, how we're not alone, we're being provided for. Just because reality is different from our expectations doesn't mean that it's an absolute disaster. But our nervous system can absolutely react like it's a disaster. So when expectations say to us that life should unfold according to my plan, surrender is going to look like, well, life might be offering something that I can't yet see. I couldn't see when we landed in Turks and Caicos and it was raining and cloudy and gross. I couldn't see how the rain was actually such a gift. It was a gift for me because it actually helped me to feel all the things I was feeling, right? To have my nervous system be activated, to have old shit come to the surface, and it did. And it gave me the opportunity to work through it. It brought me to a place of greater awareness, which is why I'm having this conversation here with you today. And that's a blessing. That was my number one blessing that came out of it. And my number two blessing was my family was forced to figure out what to do with pretty much nothing in a rainy situation while we're on vacation. What a gift. The gift of nothing. And guess what we did? We played a lot of games. Oh my gosh, we laughed and had so much fun. And I realized, man, games are so fun. And we so often just disregard playing a game, an old school card game. Do you know how much you can do with a deck of cards? I packed 3 card games, a good old fashioned deck of cards, which again, you can do a lot with, and then 2 other card games. And we played them and we laughed and we didn't rush. We didn't feel pressured to go make it to the beautiful beach. We paid here to be on the beach. No, it's raining. We're going to be here together. We're going to sit around the table. We're going to cook breakfast together and we're going to eat slow and laugh and talk. And there's no pressure. It was awesome. I couldn't see that though. I couldn't see that. That was what life was offering me. That was what God saw that we needed more than anything else. He's like, you don't need perfect. Actually, Jen, you need some work on releasing that perfect thing that you have going on there. You've got more work to do on these expectations. So when we're surrendering, it's not passivity. Like I want to really emphasize that. It's not passivity. It's participation without getting attached. It's not getting attached to the outcome, right? It's good enough for you to see what's possible, but let the details unfold because the details are God's. And again, sometimes the details of the things that don't go the way we want are for us in ways we can't even begin to imagine. And trust, it doesn't require preferred outcomes. It doesn't. It just asks us to drop in to presence. Here, now, be here. God can only meet us in the present moment. And expectations, what they're doing is they're pulling us out of the present moment. They're pulling us out. And so then we're not connecting. That doesn't mean God moves. God never moves, right? But it's in our awareness. So there's daily provision for us. I mean, the manna in the wilderness, the manna is given to us on a daily basis, right? We see that in scripture where the Israelites were called out of Egypt and they were provided with manna on the grounds every day. They weren't supposed to store it up for tomorrow. That was a command that they were given. Like, don't store that manna up. Like, trust it's going to be there tomorrow. Oh, that was hard for them. They wrestled with that. We wrestle with that. We wrestle with it because we love control. We like certainty. We like to have our expectations. We want the 10-step plan. In Matthew 6, we're told, do not worry about tomorrow. And oh my goodness, how often do we find ourselves worrying? And that comes from, again, having expectations. We want certainty. The nervous system doesn't like not having certainty, but we're not supposed to be living with that. It's trust, it's faith. Thy will be done as a release of attachment rather than resignation. Whew, my goodness. I do want to touch base on expectations versus agreements. I think that's really important. It's an important distinction because we don't want to go through life saying, well, I just have no expectations whatsoever. I don't expect a thing from anyone. Then we're living without any boundaries. We have no agreements. That's very different from what I'm talking about today. See, agreements are conscious. There's clear communication, there's boundaries, we have responsibilities, there's consent. Anyone listening who's a parent knows that you cannot parent without agreements. We have agreements from the time that they are little. Agreements on you're going to brush your teeth twice a day. You're going to make your bed and you are going to go to bed and you are going to, do your chores and your homework and be kind and use manners, right? Like those are agreements and they're conscious. Expectations are often unconscious. So expectations are mind reading. I can't tell you in my 28 years of marriage how many times my husband has said to me, Jen, I am not a mind reader. Do you have an expectation that I don't know about? Oh, yes, I do. A lot. Yeah, I do. Him and I have gotten to such a great place in our marriage after 28 years and a lot of work where we can laugh about it. He can call me out or I can call him out if one of us is catching this unconscious expectation and expecting the other one to read each other's minds. Expectations can be assumptions that we make. We make an assumption that someone should know how to do this or should know that, well, I mean, it's my birthday, so you should buy me a gift that you intuited that I'd like, and you should write me a really long letter in the card, and you should take the day off to celebrate me. And that person's like, I had no idea that you expected any of that. None. We never made an agreement. You didn't share that with me. So then what happens? You're disappointed. You're angry. You're upset. And so many of us get into places where, we end up really sad, angry, disappointed, frustrated because we've got these unconscious expectations of someone else. We've got the script in our head of how something's supposed to go. Like my client who had the script of how Mother's Day with her entire family was going to look a certain way. She didn't tell anyone that. She didn't hand them the scripts when they got there. She just had it running in her mind. And then she was disappointed and frustrated. So we also put hidden rules. Oh my gosh, we've had hidden rules. And that's something that marriage for me and my husband has really challenged us on. Where are we functioning from a place of having hidden rules? We've never talked about. We have no agreements around. So an agreement, for instance, is I expect professionalism from like my client and I will have these. I actually have a client agreement that my clients will sign. And I expect professionalism from my coach because that's what was discussed and agreed upon. And that's what I signed in the contract, right? So if I'm not acting in a professional manner, my clients have every right to have a conversation with me. They have every right to feel disappointed, right? An expectation, for instance, like if I'm working with a client, would be healing should happen by month 3 of all the symptoms that I came to Jen with. That's an expectation of their body. That's an expectation of me. And that's coming from them trying to script the timeline. So that will lead to frustration and disappointment. Last year, I worked with a client who came to me because she was really wrestling hard with an expectation that she should be pregnant by a certain date. And she wasn't. And she got so stuck in her expectation. And then she started communicating to her body that her body was failing her because it wasn't doing what she expected it to do in the time that she expected. She wanted to write the script of motherhood. She had it all planned out. And it wasn't cooperating. And what did that do? That stress created a spike in her cortisol, which affected her hormones and her gut and her sleep. And her body said, hey, we're not prioritizing fertility. She's under a lot of stress. So the first thing that her and I did together in our work was release the timeline. The very first thing we worked on before we worked on her nutrition, before we worked on her gut health, all of that stuff. We worked on releasing her expectation and her timeline, letting it go, accepting and being present to what is. And she actually experienced such enormous relief. She had fun with our work together. She relaxed. She trusted that in divine timing, she would get pregnant. God's will be done. And she did get pregnant. She's actually, by the time this podcast airs, I think she will be having her baby tomorrow. I know that she is scheduled because she's got a scheduled induction of her pregnancy. How cool is that? And it happened and she was almost shocked, like, whoa, wait a second. I'm pregnant? Wow. But for months, she was living in absolute agony because she had this timeline and this expectation. And I made it super clear when we agreed to work together that we don't do timelines here. I have no idea how your body is going to respond and how much time any of this is going to take. I just know with confidence that if we continue to take steps moving forward and we learn how to stay present and we drop those expectations, that you are going to have positive shifts and that you're going to learn a lot as you go along. So another example of an agreement could be, well, say your husband, he agreed to call you on his way home. Right? That's an agreement. And so if he doesn't call you, you can be upset and have a conversation about it. But an expectation of your partner might be that maybe he should know exactly what I need. And you never tell him. Do you even know all the things that you need? Right? And you're expecting another human being to just know exactly all the things you need, to just read you. Like, come on. Instead of communicating that. And that can lead to a lot of frustration, a lot of pent up anger, a lot of disappointment. So we want to be more aware of where we have these unconscious expectations. Again, they are very different than agreements. Agreements are so important. We have to have them. Because if you don't have agreements, then you're really setting yourself up for chaos and disappointment. So expectations can be super sneaky. And we want to be really aware of them. You want to ask yourself, where am I expecting life to look different than it actually does? Where are you expecting? Here are some areas. Well, I named one on this episode, vacations, right? Do you expect it to look a certain way? Birthdays. I actually, as I'm recording this, my 51st birthday is tomorrow. And last year, I went after this whole thing around not liking my birthday. I ran this story for my whole life. I didn't like my birthday. And I decided enough is enough with this. There were other elements involved in that, and some of it was around me struggling to receive. But what was really at the root, when I'm being humble and honest, was that I had expectations. I had these unconscious expectations of everyone around me. Nobody could ever get it right because I didn't tell anyone anything. And then I don't expect anything. Bullshit. I had to call myself out on my own bullshit. And when I learned how to drop my expectation around my birthday, I had such a great 50th. I was present. I had no expectations of people. And then the couple things that I had agreements on, I was like, actually, I really would like to have a little celebration for my 50th. And this is what I would like. Because my husband and my children and my friends are like, Jen, we want to love on you. We want to celebrate you. But what I would want might be different than what you would want. So can we come to a couple agreements? So, it was like releasing air from the Instant Pot. I was the one. It was my own internal pressure. And then I was just putting it on everyone else. It was awful. So my birthday is actually tomorrow. And this year I'm like, oh, wow, this is really fun. I don't have any expectation for it, but this is insofar, I really don't. And I'm going to be present to whatever is. But I did say, yeah, this actually would be nice. A couple people in my life offered, like my daughters are so sweet. They're so kind. And they offered to make me dinner and asked, what kind of dessert do you want? Do you want a cake? And I said, actually, this is what I would like for dinner. So that becomes an agreement. And actually, I don't want cake, but I love your homemade chocolate chip cookies. And my girlfriend offered to come over and hang out and sit by the pool with me. And I said, yeah, I would love that. You're also welcome to sleep over. That's what we're doing. We're having a adult sleepover. And so that became an agreement between us, but I have no other expectations for that. So anyway, we can have other areas. So holidays, parenting, marriage, friendships, healing, money, God, aging, health, fertility, like my client, our business, grief. My last episode was on grief and the sneaky ways that it shows up and how it presents itself in our life. But if we are functioning like actually I was when I got walloped with a wave of grief, that grief is like done. I'm over it. If we have that unconscious expectation, well, we're going to be really taken for a spin when it shows up for us out of the blue, because that's what it does. So anyway, my goodness, expectations. When we release them, we can really be present to what is. And again, that's where God is. God is in this present moment. That's where we meet God, in the present. I mean, God is in the past, the present, and the future, right? But right here, right now is where we experience God. We can't experience God any other place. So micromanagement of our life, of the script, as we have expectations, is going to pull us out of the present moment. It really, really, really is. So that vacation that I shared with you, see, at the very beginning of that, because of my unconscious expectations that I wasn't even tapping into, totally wasn't sharing with anyone else, I was making it about if everyone wasn't happy, it meant that I failed. And that in and of itself became an identity that I was carrying. Like it was my job to make everybody else happy. So my expectation actually was determining my identity. So we also want to be aware of that too. So think about things as you were exploring expectations in your own life. I want you to think about where you might be making this, and by this I mean fill in the blank, about you. Where are you making it mean about you? I was making a lot of meaning about me. And my people are looking at me like, well, what are you doing? I don't even know what's going on in your head because it's not in mine. And can you please stop assuming that it's in my head? It's in yours. So ask yourself, if this thing doesn't go according to my plan, who does that mean I am? Who do I believe that I am? Who do I believe that I'm going to become if it doesn't go according to plan? You might hear a failure, right? Like if the bridal shower that you're throwing isn't exactly what you envisioned and it doesn't go exactly as planned and it's not perfectly Pinterest worthy. What does that mean about you and your identity? Think about that, because that's where you're making it about you. So another question you can ask yourself is, what identity is this expectation protecting? Our expectations can actually have unconscious identities that we're protecting. I know this is deep, guys, but this is all the stuff that's there for us when we get super anxious and we're in a tailspin because things aren't going as we expected or as planned. And this is the stuff that I really help my clients like flesh out. And I mean, I'm sharing very vulnerably with you how I spent 2 days fleshing it out in myself. And the reason that I can sit and flesh it out in myself, and I also had a couple really good friends that are my friends that help me flesh stuff out because they're so similar to me and they're coaches and we have each other's back. I'm like, help me. Can you help me? Can you challenge me? Ask me some questions. Hold a mirror up, please. But this is what I help a lot of my clients do. And you can see too how all of our expectations also can be roots. And what's underneath the expectations can be roots of our symptoms. So whether the symptom is anxiety or fatigue or a messy gut or wacky hormones or infertility, right? They can be driving it. So we want to take a look at these things. They're important. So I'm going to leave you guys, as I often do, with some practical tools. So come back to this episode if you need to listen to it when you're stuck in a place where you're finding yourself having expectations, or just listen to me right now and like even hit stop on the podcast so you can process and think. So ask yourself this: what am I expecting right now? Like, what is the expectation? Anything you're going to go into, what is my expectation? Awareness first. Number one, we want to be aware. Always. Awareness is empowerment, my friends. The more aware we are, the more empowered we are to clear the gunk and junk that is getting in the way of us living with freedom and joy and peace and abundance in all areas of our life. Another thing you can ask yourself is, what am I making this? Again, fill in the blank. Mean. Meaning, when we put meaning to something, that often creates the suffering. So rain on my vacation, I was making that mean that the vacation was ruined and our togetherness was going to be ruined. And then we had fun with this one on vacation. We laughed a lot. Me as a parent today, I'm incredibly humble. I'm incredibly honest. I let my kids call me out. I'm honest with them. We were able to identify that I was worried that if my son, I have 2 daughters and a son, but if my son didn't have an amazing time, he's moving away 9 hours away and he's getting married. But if my son didn't have an amazing time, he wouldn't find our family valuable enough for him to sacrifice time to spend with us ever again. I mean, I can laugh at that now, but I was walking around with that. I put meaning to that. That was driving a lot of my anxiety. I was like, he's a son. He's going to leave. He's going to get a wife. He's going to think that we're not really fun enough to hang out with or special enough. And he's going to have to, come visit us 9 hours away. And he's not going to want to come visit us if, I don't know, we're not meeting his expectation. Once I identified that, I was like, oh, can we get rid of that? Can I throw that in the trash can? Because that's a weight I don't want to carry anymore. The third thing is replace expectation with intention. So instead of this vacation must be perfect, try something like, my intention for this vacation is connection. Can you feel that in your own body? So take the next event in your life that you may have some sneaky expectations around and look for where you're trying to control it and then shift it a little bit and take a look at what really, really, really matters, right? So another one is asking yourself, what if nothing is wrong? Literally, what if nothing is actually wrong? I'm only making it wrong because I'm giving meaning to that as being wrong. This is really powerful because when we can release the wrong energy around something and instead say, everything is as it should be, we then open ourselves up to receive the good. So for us on vacation, rain and really expensive food provided us with an opportunity to get super creative. We had so much fun cooking meals together. We did go out, but we cooked a lot of meals. And I joked with the kids. I'm like, we are food rationing. You may not have 2 bananas, even though bananas were cheap. And we just had fun. We laughed, we cooked. It gave us more time together in the Airbnb we rented. And that rain provided us with opportunity to play games, to have conversations, to not rush, to be together. It was awesome. And then I would encourage you to practice receiving reality. You don't always have to agree with it. It doesn't need to be your preference. You don't need to always approve of it, right? But just receive it, because we can't always change it, but we can change how we perceive it. We can change our attitude about it. And that's really powerful. So in closing, in this conversation, I would, by the way, love to hear from you. You can leave a comment here. You can email me wherever you're listening to this. I would love to hear your reflections. I would love to hear what you struggle. If you struggle with this, please let me know. I'm not alone, right? But, in the end, the rain on our vacation eventually stopped. The sun came out. We had an amazing time snorkeling and kayaking and laughing and eating meals together that lasted for hours. And what I really realized was the greatest gift of that entire vacation was not the adventure. It was not where we were in this world. It was not it being this epic vacation. It was our togetherness. And that's what ultimately I desired the most. That's what God knew we needed. And I almost missed it. I almost missed it because I was grieving the vacation that I thought I should be having. And it really helped me ask the question of how much of life do we miss because we're arguing with reality. And maybe surrender isn't actually like giving up the dream or the vision, but it's loosening our grip enough to receive what's already here, or receive the better plan, or receive the lesson in it. So this week, I really want to leave you with one more question. Where are your expectations keeping you from experiencing the gift of the present moment? Until next time, my friends, continue surrendering, loosening your grip, dropping into the joy and the peace and the abundance that is available for you. Thank you for joining me on the Daily Surrender. If today's episode spoke to you, I'd love to hear your reflections. Send me a message, share this with a friend, or leave a review. Remember, true healing and freedom come when we let go, surrender, and trust that God's way is so much better than our way. Until next time, my friends, keep surrendering, keep rising, and keep walking in peace.